Imagine being sent off to war, leaving everything behind, your wife, your newborn daughter, with a promise to return no matter what. But fate had other plans. Declared dead, many soldiers never make it back. But what if one of them did? After years of being presumed dead, a man finally returns home, only to find that nothing is as he left it. A devastating truth awaits him at the door of his old life. This is a story of love, loss, and a fight for redemption you can't miss. Before the war, John Miller was an ordinary man living an ordinary life in a quiet Midwest town. He worked tirelessly to provide for his young family, his wife Emily and their newborn daughter Lily. Every morning, John would wake up to the sound of Lily's soft cries, her tiny hands grasping at the world, and Emily's soothing voice, singing lullabies in the kitchen. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was full of love, a precious simplicity they all cherished. Then came the war. The nation called upon its sons, husbands, and fathers to serve. John, feeling a sense of duty and pride in protecting the country he loved, knew he couldn't refuse. But as the letters arrived and neighbors began leaving for the front lines, the looming shadow of separation grew darker. For John and Emily, the thought of being apart was unbearable, but they both knew it was a sacrifice they had to make. The day of John's departure was somber. Emily stood at the train station, clutching Lily close to her chest. Her tears fell silently as John embraced them both one last time. He kissed Emily's forehead and whispered, "I'll come back, no matter what." Then he turned to Lily, who cooed softly in her blanket. "I'll be back to teach you how to ride a bike," he promised, even though she was far too young to understand. As the train pulled away, Emily's heart shattered. She stood frozen, watching the man she loved fade into the distance, his figure swallowed by a cloud of steam and the rhythmic churning of wheels. All she could do was pray that the war would end quickly and that John would return home safely. But as weeks turned into months and months into years, the letters stopped coming. Emily clung to hope, but the dreaded news finally arrived. A notice from the government informing her that John Miller was presumed dead during a surprise enemy attack. Her world crumbled. Alone with a young child, Emily had no choice but to pick up the pieces of her life and move forward. After the devastating news of John's presumed death, Emily faced the harsh reality of rebuilding her life without him. Alone in a small town where every corner reminded her of their shared dreams, she did what she had to do. She focused on Lily. Her daughter became her anchor, her reason to keep going, even when grief threatened to overwhelm her. But raising a child alone was no easy feat. Financial struggles loomed over Emily, and the weight of being both mother and provider grew heavier with each passing day. She took on extra shifts at the local diner, where the long hours helped distract her from the pain, but left her little time for rest. Her friends and neighbors rallied around her at first, but over time their support waned, and Emily found herself increasingly isolated. 2 years later, a chance encounter changed everything. At the church's annual community gathering, Emily met Mark, a kind and reliable man who seemed to genuinely care for her and Lily. Unlike others who offered pity, Mark offered stability. He worked as a carpenter and had a steady income, but more importantly, he showed a willingness to take on the role of a father figure for Lily. Emily resisted at first, her heart still tethered to the memory of John. But the need to create a sense of normalcy for Lily ultimately outweighed her hesitations. She and Mark married in a small ceremony at the church where they first met. Life seemed to stabilize, but beneath the surface, cracks began to show. Lily, now a spirited 8-year-old, struggled to adjust to Mark's strict demeanor. While Mark provided for the family, his patience often wore thin, and moments of tension began to creep into their once peaceful home. Years passed, But for John Miller, each day felt like an eternity. Surviving behind enemy lines had been nothing short of a miracle. Injured and presumed dead, he was taken as a prisoner of war. He endured harsh conditions, clinging to the hope that one day he would see his family again. After years of captivity and eventual liberation, John began the long journey home, driven by the memory of Emily and Lily. When he finally stepped off the bus in his hometown, John felt a flood of emotions: relief, anticipation, and an overwhelming desire to hold his wife and daughter again. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in his mind, picturing Emily's smile and Lily running into his arms. As he walked the familiar streets toward his house, he couldn't help but notice how much had changed. The trees seemed taller, the neighborhood quieter, and the home he had once known as his sanctuary now felt distant. Reaching the front porch, John hesitated. His heart raced as he raised his hand to knock. But before he could, the door swung open, and standing there was a man he didn't recognize. The stranger looked at John with confusion, and in that split second, everything changed. "Can I help you?" the man asked. John's voice faltered. I'm looking for Emily." The stranger turned and called inside. Moments later, Emily appeared. Her face went pale as she froze in the doorway, staring at the man she had thought was gone forever. Behind her, Lily peeked around the corner, her curious eyes meeting John's. "Daddy," Lily whispered. John's heart shattered and swelled at the same time. He stepped forward, arms outstretched, but before he could reach her, Mark appeared, placing a protective hand on Emily's shoulder. It was then that John realized the truth. His wife had moved on, and another man had taken his place in the home he once knew. The reunion that John had dreamed of was nothing like he had imagined. Instead of joy, it was filled with tension, disbelief, and heartbreak. Emily struggled to find words, torn between the life she had rebuilt and the man she once loved. Lily, though hesitant at first, ran into John's arms, a connection sparking between them instantly. For John, that moment with his daughter was everything. But it wasn't enough to erase the sting of betrayal. As the initial shock wore off, emotions ran high. John's anger simmered beneath the surface as he processed the loss of the life he had fought to return to. Mark, sensing the tension, became defensive, claiming his place as the man of the house. Emily, caught in the middle, begged for understanding. But John couldn't ignore the pain of seeing another man in his home, claiming his family. It was clear that John's return was not the happy ending he had envisioned. But for Lily's sake, he knew he couldn't walk away. The days following John's return were tense and filled with uncertainty. While Lily had quickly warmed to her biological father, Emily and Mark were left grappling with the unexpected situation. John, still adjusting to life outside the war, now faced a battle of a different kind, reclaiming his place in a family that no longer felt like his. Tensions in the household quickly escalated. Mark, already uncomfortable with John's presence, began asserting his authority, reminding everyone that he was the one who had supported Emily and Lily during John's absence. To John, these words felt like daggers, reopening wounds he thought had healed during his years of suffering. The weight of his sacrifice, juxtaposed with the life Emily had rebuilt, left him feeling displaced and powerless. But John wasn't one to back down easily. Determined to reconnect with Lily, he spent as much time with her as possible, sharing stories of his time away and learning about her life. Lily, who had always felt a subtle distance from Mark, gravitated toward John's warmth and patience. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, much to Mark's visible frustration. One evening, as John tucked Lily into bed, she hesitated before speaking. "Daddy, why does Mark get so angry?" she asked innocently. John's heart sank. He had noticed Mark's sharp tone and occasional outbursts, but had assumed it was tension from the complicated situation. Now, he realized there was more to the story. Over the next few weeks, John began to observe subtle signs of Lily's discomfort around Mark. She flinched at his loud voice and avoided him whenever possible. While Emily seemed unaware of the full extent, John's instincts told him something was wrong. He couldn't ignore the growing sense that Mark's presence was doing more harm than good. Determined to uncover the truth, John approached Emily one evening. Choosing his words carefully, he expressed his concerns about Mark's behavior. At first, Emily was defensive, insisting that Mark had always been a good provider. But as John described Lily's unease, a flicker of doubt crossed her face. "I've noticed she's been quieter lately," Emily admitted softly. "But I thought it was because of all the changes." The turning point came when Lily confided in John about an incident that had left her in tears. Though it wasn't physical harm, the emotional toll of Mark's harshness was evident. For John, this was the confirmation he needed. His daughter wasn't thriving in this environment, and as her father, it was his responsibility to protect her. The realization ignited a fire in John. He knew that staying passive wasn't an option. For Lily's sake, he would have to fight, not with anger or revenge, but with determination and love. It was the beginning of a new battle, one where the stakes were higher than ever before. With the truth about Lily's unhappiness weighing heavily on his heart, John knew he had to take action. For years, he had fought battles in foreign lands, but this was different. This time, he wasn't fighting for survival, he was fighting for his daughter's future. The first step was gaining the right to be more involved in Lily's life. John sought legal advice, unsure of his standing after years of being presumed dead. At first, the lawyers were skeptical. "You're technically not listed as her guardian anymore," one explained. "But if you can prove that her current environment isn't in her best interest, you might have a case." Though the odds weren't in his favor, John refused to be discouraged. John threw himself into the fight with relentless determination. He spent days gathering evidence to show the court that he was fit to be a father again. Character references from friends and former neighbors painted a picture of the kind, dependable man he had been before the war. Meanwhile, he documented Lily's strained relationship with Mark, careful to avoid creating more tension at home. His strategy was simple: to show the court that Lily would thrive in his care. At the same time, John worked to rebuild his bond with Lily. They spent afternoons at the park, talking about her favorite books and dreams for the future. He taught her how to ride a bike, just as he had promised years ago. These moments weren't just about proving himself to the court. They were about proving himself to Lily. For the first time in years, he felt like a father again. Emily found herself caught between conflicting loyalties. On one hand, she recognized John's unwavering love for their daughter. On the other, she struggled with the reality that Mark had stepped into the fatherly role during John's absence. But as John's case unfolded, Emily couldn't deny that Lily's happiness was most vibrant when she was with her biological father. The courtroom hearings were emotionally charged. Mark, feeling his authority challenged, painted John as an unstable and unpredictable presence in Lily's life. But John remained calm, relying on facts and heartfelt testimony to make his case. He spoke about the years he had lost, the sacrifices he had made, and the unwavering love he felt for his daughter. His sincerity moved not only the judge but also Emily, who began to see the depth of his commitment. The final ruling came after weeks of uncertainty. The judge awarded John full custody, citing his clear dedication to Lily's well-being and the evidence of her discomfort in her current environment. For John, the victory wasn't just about winning a legal battle, it was about reclaiming his role as a father and giving Lily the life she deserved. As they left the courthouse hand in hand, John looked down at Lily and smiled. "This is just the beginning," he said softly, and for the first time in years, he felt at peace. Life began anew for John and Lily after the court's decision. The weight of uncertainty was lifted, replaced by a sense of purpose and hope. For the first time in years, John felt like he could finally give his daughter the stability and love she had always deserved. Their new home wasn't grand, a modest apartment on the edge of town, but it was filled with warmth and laughter. John worked tirelessly to provide for Lily, taking on a job as a mechanic, a skill he had honed during his years in the army. Though the work was demanding, every evening he made time for Lily, helping her with homework, sharing meals, and tucking her in with bedtime stories about courage and resilience. For Lily, the change was transformative. The lingering tension and fear that had shadowed her life began to fade. In their place blossomed a sense of security and belonging. She excelled at school, her smile growing brighter with each passing day. The bond she shared with her father became unshakable, a testament to the love and determination that had brought them back together. Emily remained a part of Lily's life, visiting regularly and co-parenting alongside John. Their relationship, though no longer romantic, evolved into a respectful partnership. Emily often expressed gratitude for John's unwavering fight for their daughter, admitting that she had underestimated the depth of his strength and love. As for Mark, his role in their lives diminished. Though his exit was marked by bitterness, it ultimately allowed Lily to heal and thrive. With John as her primary guardian, she flourished in ways that had once seemed impossible. Looking back, John often marveled at how far they had come. The key scars of war and loss had shaped him, but they didn't define him. Instead, they had forged a man capable of enduring unimaginable hardships to protect the ones he loved. For John, the greatest victory wasn't winning custody. It was seeing Lily grow into a happy, confident young girl. On a warm spring afternoon, as they sat together under the shade of an old oak tree, Lily leaned against her father and whispered, "You kept your promise, Daddy." John smiled, tears welling in his eyes. "I'll always keep my promises," he replied. And in that moment, John realized that despite everything he had lost, he had gained something far more precious, a second chance to be the father Lily needed. If you made it to the end of this incredible story, comment the word promise below to let us know you were here. We'd love to hear your thoughts on John's journey and what it means to keep fighting for the ones you love. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this one.